Good morning, everybody. It is January 29th. Another cold one out there today. We are going to jump into the news today. Quite a bit, actually, in that realm. So, Tesla announced that it looks like they're going to start producing a lot more of their robots and not the Model S and X anymore. So a couple of their factories are going to be repurposed for those robot development, or not development, but actually the manufacturing of them. So robots coming your way, Terminator-like stuff. So US version of TikTok is not very popular. 150% increase in uninstalls. Not super surprising. They didn't announce this, but the privacy data is significantly worse on the US version. So a lot of people getting rid of that one. OpenAI announced this one yesterday. Prism, a research tool for essentially writing research papers. I'm not super familiar with the writes in. I actually play with it a little bit this morning. A little bit over my head as far as like why to use this. I'm assuming it's just an easier way to create those research papers, but pretty interesting that they are getting into that competitive space because there's like a bunch of different paid for softwares that this is essentially competing with, and now this is a free software that OpenAI is providing. So we'll see how that disrupts that industry as well. All right, next is again winter. Winter is here. Another storm hitting the East Coast, particularly in my area. We're supposed to be getting somewhere between 1 and a bajillion inches of snow, depending who you ask. We'll see how much I actually get. But we're already kind of hunkered down. Generator's ready to go, and I am prepared for the winter storms. Bridgerton Season 4 dropped out today. My wife is very excited to binge this tonight. So this one is always pretty interesting. Check it out on Netflix, I'm sure. And last but not least, I am a big Brandon Sanderson fan, and he just struck a deal with Apple TV in regards to his Cosmere books. So if you're a Mistborn or a Stormlight Archive fan, this one is actually pretty good news because he got all the things that he was asking for. He was looking for a lot of different control and producer rights and all that good stuff for actually controlling the narrative and how this is shot and displayed. So I am pretty excited to see how this turns out because I think Brandon definitely wants to keep true to the books, and they are great books. Alrighty, let's jump into what we were doing yesterday. So, yesterday I was log in here. Yesterday we were doing those expense apps APIs, and essentially I got all of the APIs working, but they were essentially just stringed together with one particular transaction to test everything together. But today I would like to actually get all those pieces connected up together. So that's what we're gonna do. Always authenticating. Turn off my news background here. All right, and I'm in my recurring expenses app here. Worked in that get credit card transactions orchestration. So if I go back through my API calls here, essentially we got the retrieval of the credit card transactions, which is going to be the start of my loop. And then we are going to get into the creation of the expense report and then the creation of the line item off of the transaction, and then actually pushing that expense report to being submitted. But first I want to make sure, I did run all these yesterday and I got 200s, but I didn't actually verify this in tenant if this is actually functioning the way I thought it would. So let's go ahead and log into our tenant. And we'll check Logan's expense report. Looking for Logan's expense reports. My expense. All right. So when was that submitted? I forget all the hard-coded data I stuck in there. Creation date, January 1st of 1985. Okay, so this is definitely the one. I guess either of these could be the one that I submitted. There's no total amount though. Don't like that. Total amount of the line item was $100. Let's actually look at this report, see if it has a line item. Nothing on this one. That was the one that had the gobbledygook in the menu, and I know I did update that, so I think this is the one I should be looking at. It does have a line item, excellent. So it did add that airfare transaction. So this was doing nothing essentially. Sure if I'd take this out. Kind of teaching myself how to operate these expense reports via API at this point. Let's edit this expense report. And I'm going to take off this line item. Oh, I delete a line item. There. Okay. Save for later. So I still have an empty expense report in draft status. Now I want to see if I can add this back. I took that total amount off that I was actually running into an issue yesterday, because I don't think that's actually a required field. I'm gonna have to run through a few of these to actually get my debugger working. This is gonna get my bearer token. This is gonna assign that to a variable. Gonna get credit card transactions. You don't need to create the expense report again, but do need to because it's referring to that expense report in the creation of the line item. This is going to create yet another expense report. Then I'm going to add that line item without the total amount of 100, which I think should work, assuming it's not a required field. Yeah, 200. So it pulled in that total amount for me from the existing credit card transaction. That was a $592 airfare. Do I even need to specify airfare then? Probably not. Take a look at this body. Oh, I'm not doing that. Excellent. This is the expense item of airfare though. What if I just take this out? Very curious. All right, we're gonna go through this all again. I'm 100% sure that this is going to 1/1/1985. So here's my new test report. This is going to have that already added, again, without that total amount that was clearly a optional field on purpose, probably for adding line items for things that don't already have a transaction tied to it. So let's go through this one more time. I'm going to go ahead and create a new expense report via API. And then I'm going to run create line item again. But this time, again, I don't have that extra line item. Let's just specify here. No airfare expense item for total amount. So I can see it in tenant. Run that. Status of credit card transaction must be new. Oh, that's right, because I added it to that other expense report. I need to get rid of it on this one. I want to add it to my new one. Save this empty report and resubmit that last transaction. Perfect. So now I have a much cleaner request body. Again, just a simple memo, descriptor, and then the credit card transaction that I'm using. And then I'll also sub this out for today's date. Actually, that should be the date from the credit card transaction. I need any of this stuff. I wonder if I can just submit the credit card transaction and I can pull the rest from this credit card transaction itself. One way to find out. Right, and then my test report. This is the last one I did. Delete this credit card transaction so I can see if I can really trim down this API request to just be simple as possible. All right, I'm going to create third expense report so I can see if I can add this line item by just using the ID of the credit card transaction. Now this should be today's date. I think I'm going to do that. Days, date. Is there a function for that? There is. Date. Date now, that's what it is. I want that to be a string though. Do date now to string. What does that actually return? The date in the format. Oh. Okay, perfect. Year, month. I'm gonna change the quick format of this date though to, because I'm pretty sure the date on this particular API is looking for this date year. Yeah, that's right. Year, day, month. So I don't need that. That is unnecessary. I'll do this to string. And then I can use this today's date. It escapes me. I copy and paste too much, so now I'm gonna use advanced mode to just show me how to grab this real quick. Today's date. Advanced mode. Yeah, that's it. Data.create values. And then we're gonna go back to my line item, not my line item, my expense report, and then that creation. Not gonna hard code that anymore. And then to turn this into a variable, 2 curly brackets on each side. Perfect. Payees, Logan, this is Logan's ID. Company's still the GMS, descriptor. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Let's try this one more time. New bearer token, a variable, including the date. Don't need to grab credit card transactions, but that still works. Create the new expense report, but before I do that, I want to make sure that the expense lines are gone. $101, 1911. Perfect. So create my expense report, 400, darn it. Unexpected character, creation date. What did I submit? 26/1/29. Looks right to me. Comma separate object entries. Oh, it's not in a string. So we'll go back to expense report body. Isn't that going to... Is that not stringified? If I just do this, just toString, will that fix my problem to stringify it again? Nope. I think if I put quotes around this, it's not going to give me what I want. I don't want the actual text of this, I want the variable. Try that. I don't think that's going to work either. That does work. Oh, fantastic. So it does recognize the curly brackets within quotes. Excellent. Okay, that works. And then creating a line item. It does do all that. So if I just use the credit card transaction ID from the expense report for the expense report line item, then it automatically pulls in descriptor, ID, date, currency, total amount. Excellent, all that stuff. Don't even have to put any of that in. So that makes my life a lot easier as far as having to pull stuff from other API calls. And we won't submit this because I still want to hang on to that credit card transaction. Now if I go back here, I can verify that that does work exactly the way that the API is telling me it did. And there's my expense report with today's date. And there's my line item. Excellent. Love it when a plan comes together. All right, now we just need to get this SOAP credit card transactions to pull in just the pending transactions for Logan. So let's go ahead and test that. So first we're gonna need to grab my body, and we'll go ahead and do this in here. You won't need to switch over to like a Postman or anything like that. We just need to filter on the status of new, I believe. We get these. Let me go to my... This is that Prism OpenAI thing. We're gonna go to my SOAP Explorer and see what that tag is for the element to actually filter this down into what I need. Expense, credit, get our transactions that we're using. tenant here. And we're looking for not the date, we're looking for status. Look up business object. We're looking for our expense item. And the expense items, those are going to be, these are going to be those like the airfare, taxi, that kind of thing. We're looking for expense line item. Business object, line item, expense report lines, field we're looking for is status. Not contract status. Status reference. Expense report line status. That's right. I guess it's not the expense report line, it's the actual transaction. Credit card transaction. Just need to get the WID of that status. This is a calculated reference field. I just need, oh my goodness, integration IDs. Looking for the credit card transaction status. Can't seem to find the WID. If I just run this, let's see. Got the WIDs in here, doesn't it? Oh goodness. Status. Where are you? Event status ID. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, new Workday ID. Now we're cooking. And back to my tester. Status reference with kind of looks like this. Need to change the namespace when I drop it over here. Where does that go? Request criteria. So in my SOAP transaction, under my body, request criteria, so not just the company, but also the status reference. And the namespace needs to change to WD, not this BSVC. And that WID is for the new. If I run this, hopefully it's going to get just that one. What do I got here? Headers. Something's wrong. Invalid request. Darn it. I do wrong. Status reference. Underneath. 0 or more. Did I change? Oh, I think this is what the problem is right here. The type also has a namespace. Yep. So SOAP is interesting to say the least because of all these namespaces. This is essentially a way for it to tell it how it likes the data to be structured in a particular way, so it keeps your users on rails to use a particular structure, or else you get all these invalid request errors. So it's a double-edged sword. It keeps people from sending in junk data and junk types and all of that stuff, but it also creates quite the headache for developers that are trying to just get a SOAP request working. Alright, that worked. Nope, still invalid request. Let's check all those namespaces one more time. Nope, I didn't get the end tag. Goodness gracious. I had the end tag here was still the wrong namespace. Had to get the right tag here. Start and end tag here. I think now my status reference all has proper namespaces. Let's see if I'm still getting an invalid reference. Nope, 200. Excellent. Which that should... What all am I getting back here? These are all new. I really just need logins. So let's try and filter a little bit more. Is there a way to also just get particular users? I might need to filter that out after the fact. Okay. Well, yeah. So that'll be relatively easy. So essentially we have the SOAP request coming back. It's all the new transactions from GMS. But we need to now filter out all of the transactions that are not Logan. And we can actually do that in our loop. So when we're looping through, we can loop conditionally through the particular XML path that is Logan McNeil. So if you recall earlier this week when we set this loop up, we're looping on that data set, and we're using this expense credit card transaction, which is going to be every single credit card transaction that's coming back through that SOAP request. But then we can just kind of refine this to actually dive down into just the ones that are Logan McNeil using this handy filter. And we'll do that tomorrow. We'll filter out just our SOAP request that Logan's getting. We should have that airfare transaction still that we've been playing with, because we haven't submitted that yet. And then we can successfully put these 3 additional REST requests that create and submit our expense report into our loop, and then that'll kind of close out this little integration, and then we can work on the UI side of this and start being able to recognize these recurring transactions in a more UI based way, and then hopefully also stick this into a little agent that can recognize that as well, and then set that up for us. All right, well, thanks guys, appreciate it, and we will see you all tomorrow.